Alright guys, Willem here back with a new video, and in this video we're back with another cast reaction for a challenge season, this being the next main series season, that being the challenge 39. Which seems set up to be a pretty strange season here, where coming into this season it was very much well known that it was going to be a cast filled of lesser names, that a lot of the bigger names weren't going to be on this season, seemingly due to the fact that they had just done seasons like USA 2 and World Championship. And through that, we did get a cast full with lesser names. Though we're at the point now where I'm recording this on Friday night, right before this video comes out. Also, day after Departure Day, where it seems like only 24 cast members are on location right now. Obviously, a very small amount for a typical challenge season. Which, again, this initial concept of there being these lesser names was actually one that I was kind of excited for. I feel like recent challenge has been one that has predominantly focused on the same people over and over again. This core alliance of vets that really just play the game in a really boring way. And I was kind of hoping that this season could be a change to that. Have these new faces, essentially this group of essentially non-winning players and also not that well decorated players. There being very few players here that have played more than a couple times, also strangely having no complete rookies to the show, kind of allowing these lesser names that really take the spotlight here, which is something I just kind of like. And while there is definitely still potential for that, it does very much seem at this point that we're looking towards some sort of invasion style season. I don't know if it'll be Invasion of the Champions or just really a crop of vets that join later in the game, but it does very much feel like that is the direction we're heading in, which again is a bit underwhelming from where we were, though considering this is the only cast we got right now, I decided still to just get around doing my cast reaction from the initial 24 people that we got here, which again is a really random group of players, a lot of people that were either relatively early boots or just straight up lesser names. So again, it does feel weird to think of these people as people that would carry a challenge season, but it was still an interesting group of people to begin with. But again, let's start running through them. I'll be running through them in alphabetical order of first name. So with that, let's start off with a pretty interesting pick right off the bat, and that is Asaf Karen, who had only been on one challenge season beforehand, that being Total Madness, to which he was the first boot on that season. However, he's been someone that's continuously been in the running to come back in the years since, and I don't mind his return here. Now, again, it's one of these, I'm not particularly excited for him to be back. He's largely just kind of a fine figure in challenge history, one that seemed to have some potential his first time around, though was obviously just targeted due to the fact that he was a rookie coming into that season. I feel like on a season like this, there's definitely some potential for him to display here, though largely a pick here that I'm largely unfazed by. Next up, moving on to one of the people that we've been kind of assuming was going to be on this cast for a while, and that ends up being Berna, who is obviously on Spies, Lies, and Allies, and really Spies, Lies, and Allies ends up having a pretty large role on this season, which actually does make sense. I mean, Spies, Lies, and Allies was a season that was for the most part filled with newbies, and considering very few of those people end up coming back for Ride or Dies, it makes sense that they're back here with this kind of feeling like a sequel season to Spies, Lies, and Allies to a degree, which as much as I don't like Spies, Lies, and Allies, I feel like the casting of the newbies was actually one of the better things about that season. However, Berna here, I'm a bit more conflicted on. I feel like Berna was someone that I just kind of got annoyed with. I didn't particularly like how Berna handled herself on the season, though at the same time, it did make for good TV at points. Again, the fact that she is this extremely hypocritical and very emotional player is what kind of makes her interesting TV. So I'm not opposed to her being on this season, though someone, again, I'm not like particularly excited by. Next up, one of the technical rookies for the main series, though someone that did come from the international shows, and here we do have Callum, who was on the Challenge UK, and I really liked him on the Challenge UK. I mean, obviously he performed pretty well. He did get to the final. He was not particularly close to winning, though I think Callum is someone that is kind of a perfect casting choice in my mind for the challenge. Someone that is willing to hook up with people, someone that is pretty decent in the challenges, and someone that can bring some drama. Like, I feel like Callum is a pretty perfect pick here, and I definitely don't have any qualms with. Next up, moving on to someone that I don't know why this person is here. I'm pretty surprised he's here, and that person is Chauncey from Ride or Dies, who, one, I did not need to see Chauncey back. I didn't feel he was particularly entertaining on Ride or Dies itself. However, here he's going to be here without Amber B, which I can't tell if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know if that's going to be better as he can play the game on his own or if it's going to be worse, as Amber B was kind of the thing that kept him kind of interesting. However, also I find it weird that he's here when he literally just had a kid. Like Amber B literally just gave birth, which again, you would assume that he wouldn't want to miss that. So again, I do find his placement on this cast to be kind of weird, but again, like he's fine. To me, I'm just like kind of whatever on Chauncey here. He's not something I'm particularly excited for, but I'm not necessarily angry that he's here either. It's just kind of a whatever pick. Next up, moving on to someone from the Challenge Australia, and that is Kieran, who I do feel like is like a perfect fit for the challenge. Someone that is, again, extremely messy and can bring some entertainment while also being a good competitor. I mean, he literally cheated on his girlfriend on the first day of Challenge Australia. So really, who knows what he's going to do. He does very much feel in line with the older school style of casting for the challenge. Though I will say I did feel like he became a lot less entertaining by the end of the season, but still someone I'm pretty fine with making the transition to the original show here. Someone that very much feels like the type of person they would cast on older school seasons. So again, perfectly fine with him here. Next up, another one of the rookies from Ride or Dies. Here we do have Colleen, who is a fine pick here. Again, another person that I was like, did we need to see back? Not really. I'm not like excited for a Colleen return. However, it's not a terrible pick. I feel like she at least had some stuff going on the first time around with her storyline about lying about being on the mole. That was kind of humorous, but again, like I don't really know how much entertainment she's really going to bring here. Again, not someone I was like dying to see back, but someone that I think maybe has some potential, especially without all these vets hogging up the screen time, that she could potentially become a better character. Next up, moving on to someone that I was pretty disappointed didn't make the final cut of Ride or Dies. It's finally back here, and that is Corey Lay from Spies, Lies, and Allies, who I really liked on Spies, Lies, and Allies. I thought he was a really fun character. I thought he was willing to get into drama. He seemed to be playing the game pretty hard, and I feel pretty good about him coming into this season. Now, he's not someone that I'm like particularly high on in terms of winning the season, though I do think he's someone that can bring what I want him to bring to the show in terms of the entertainment value, also being a pretty solid competitor. So I do feel like Corey Lay is a pretty solid pick in my mind. Next up, another one of the Spies, Lies, and Allies rookie field. Here we do have Ed, who obviously originally came from The Circle, and I surprisingly really liked Ed on Spies, Lies, and Allies. We're coming out of The Circle, I was not particularly high on him. However, I thought he was a fun character on the challenge, and I'm fine with him being back here as well. And he's a solid competitor, someone that I was pleasantly surprised by entertainment-wise, and I do feel like here he should be moderately entertaining as well. And with this also being a slightly weaker field than what we typically get, I do feel like Ed could definitely have some potential in this season, so I feel like he is a solid pick. Next up, moving on to someone that I'm not particularly excited to see back here, though is someone that I was kind of expecting to see back, and that person is Emmanuel from Spies, Lies, and Allies, who I thought was a pretty big lock to eventually come back. I mean, he was clearly loved by production the first time around, even though I always found him kind of boring. But then on Ride or Dies, he was supposed to be there with Emmy, and Emmy got dropped the last second, so he got dropped as well. However, for here, again, it just made all the sense in the world that he was going to make the cut here. And again, I think he's probably in a decent-ish spot here with all the Spies, Lies, and Allies people, on the fact that he is just a solid competitor, but just someone that I was never particularly high on from an entertainment perspective, though where that's kind of why I'm not as hyped as I probably could have been for him here. Next up, moving on to someone that I'm just genuinely surprised is on this cast. Not because production wouldn't want him, I just thought he wouldn't be able to do it. And that person is Horacio, who he was literally on the list of people to not expect on this season. And he had just joined this like soccer team, and 100% I did not expect to see Horacio on this season, but I am pleasantly surprised to see him. Now, again, I think Horacio, as much as he is a great competitor, is not the most riveting TV, and I think that's probably the underwhelming aspect of him being on the cast. But really, I mean, Horacio is just such a likable person and someone that is so good at the challenges to where I'm personally excited to see him back here. I think for me personally, I mean, he's my winner pick from the men's side of things. I mean, I think it's pretty clear to me that he's one of the best challenge competitors we've seen in a while, and I do feel like he has a lot of potential in this field, especially considering it's a weaker crop of competitors. And Horacio is just someone I'm very much expecting to really dominate this season, but I guess we'll see. But next up, we're moving on to someone that I am also pretty happy to see back here, someone that I really liked on Spies, Lies, and Allies, and that person is Huey, who, again, I thought was a fun character on that season. I thought one of the better characters in the first half of the season. Again, someone that was very emotional, got into a lot of confrontations, but still came off as very likable, and I feel like Huey being back here, again, is an interesting spot for him. Now, and he's still not someone I'm ever expecting to like really win the challenge, but still someone that I think will at least bring a lot of drama and a lot of good TV, so at least there's that. Next, I'm moving on to someone that I very much expected to see here, and I'm kind of excited to see how he does without all the vets being here, and that person is Jay, who's kind of one of the most experienced players on the board here, surprisingly. And again, I think Jay could do very well on this season. I mean, Jay has already demonstrated himself to have a lot of potential in the challenge, someone that seems to be pretty poised to win a final if he's able to get there. And considering he's on a season here with a decent amount of people that he has worked with in former seasons, I feel like this is a pretty good spot for Jay. And I feel like if he is going to win a season, this is probably the season for him to win. So again, I'm pretty excited to see how he does here. Next up, moving on to another person coming from the Challenge Australia, that person being Jessica, who I am pretty happy to see here. I think Jessica is someone that came off as pretty likable on her season, someone that was a pretty solid competitor despite her being a pretty early boot. And I feel like this is a decent spot for her. I think she could definitely get redemption on this season. I believe she's also a massive fan of the challenge and was really excited to be there the first time around. And just in general, I'm kind of happy that Jessica is on the cast here. I feel like she's someone that has potential, really wants to be there. So I'm just interested in seeing how she'll do. Next, moving on to someone that I'm pretty happy to see him get a shot on the main show. He's clearly been wanting it. And considering his recent streak of being an alternate, it's nice to see him finally get on. And that is Kyland, who obviously originally came from Big Brother 23, but he was on the Challenge USA. And he's been an alternate for both World Championship and also USA 2. So again, for him to get in the main show, I'm pretty happy for him. I mean, he's someone that I could definitely see being the next coming of Fessy, this very solid all-around competitor that also can be a very messy. I mean, we also saw him be very messy in BB23. I will say his USA performance kind of underwhelmed me, especially from the entertainment side of things, though I think he could definitely bring it here. I could see him kind of being this very well-rounded challenge competitor, one that is able to play this like villain figure while also being involved in drama and hookups and do well in challenges. I feel like he can be an all-rounder, but I guess we'll really have to see. Next up, moving on to someone that is another person I'm happy-ish to see back, and that person is Melissa, who we had last seen in Total Madness. Now, obviously, she's had a kid since then. Though, again, kind of happy to see her back here. Obviously, her first two appearances were very much filled with a lot of drama, and she was this very messy player, though when she came back for Total Madness, she was kind of just okay there, even though she performed better than she did in the previous seasons. Here, I mean, like, I'm looking at her as a pretty solid competitor. I think she could do pretty well here. I think she could also maybe bring back the drama that she had the first few times. Again, don't know, but again, just kind of happy to see a more experienced competitor that we just haven't seen in a bit, so at least there's that. Next up, moving on to someone that I can't believe this person's on here, considering in the lead up to this season, it did feel like there were not going to be any USA 2 people on this cast, yet somehow we have Michelle Fitzgerald, which makes this her third season in like a year, which is kind of insane, where she's done Challenge 38, 39, and obviously USA 2. And straight up, I don't know if I needed Michelle on this season. Again, I very much like Michelle. I thought she was great to have transition over to the challenge, and I think she's played a pretty fun role on the seasons we've seen her in so far, but I really felt like I didn't need her here. I feel like there are probably other people I would have liked to see more, especially people that we haven't seen back already. I mean, again, she was one of the few people to come back for Ride or Dies from Spies, Lies, and Allies, and through that, again, I kind of wanted to see other people more so than Michelle, but again, I'm not opposed to her being here either. Obviously, it's still someone that I'm obviously very familiar with from before this season, and really, this is also a decent spot for Michelle. Again, this is another position kind of like Jay, where in a field now where all the bigger names are out of the picture, and her being here with a lot of people that she's kind of worked with in former seasons, it kind of puts her in a pretty decent spot here, especially considering the fact that she's no slouch in competition. So again, I feel like this is a spot where Michelle kind of has a chance here. Next up, moving on to another person that was on Ride or Dies, and that ends up being Mariah, who I'm a little bit surprised is here. Not completely. Like, I did think there was a shot of her being here coming into this season, though I am a little bit surprised that they cared about Mariah that much, to where, I mean, Mariah was fine her first time around. Again, she didn't bring that much entertainment to the show outside of her relationship with Fessy, which, again, Fessy's not on this season, so that kind of takes away that aspect of her character. However, I can see where they see the potential in her. I mean, she is obviously very physical. She's obviously in incredible shape. She can still get in drama, even though, again, I think her inherent personality is not super interesting, and is also someone that can be involved in hookups and whatnot. So, like, I can kind of see the challenge potential for her. Again, I feel like it's another one of these situations where I feel like there are probably other people I would have rather seen back, but again, Mariah's not an entirely bad pick here. Next up, moving on to someone that was obviously going to be on this season because why not? And that is Nam. And again, Nam's just on every season at this point. I mean, you really got to feel bad for him. I mean, this is literally his 4th chance, and he still hasn't legitimately been given a chance. Obviously, first time being DQ'd from the game and also being stuck with Lolo. His 2nd time around, he has to leave almost instantly. His 3rd time around, Emmy ends up quitting on him. It's like, again, he hasn't really gotten a proper chance. And even though, again, he's another one of these that I don't know how interesting a TV he really is, I at least would like to see him get a chance on the show and have just a normal ending to a run on a season. So again, I'm happy to see him back just for that. Next up, moving on to another person from Ride or Dies that I kind of expected coming into this person being someone that I expect to be a mainstay on the show moving forward. And that person is Norris, who again just kind of feels like the perfect person for the challenge. Someone that is good enough at challenges to where they're not a complete dud on the season. Now, again, I think she's kind of in this like Nani style of like, I don't really expect Norris to ever win the show, but again, at least see her making a pretty deep run on specific seasons. I also feel like outside that, again, she is someone that is very willing to get into drama. She's someone that is very willing to hook up. I feel like she is kind of the epitome of the challenge, of old school challenge. I feel like she kind of fits into what I would personally want from someone on the challenge. So again, I'm perfectly fine with Norris being here. Next up, a person I'm pretty surprised is here. Someone that had kind of claimed immediately after last season that they weren't going to be on the next season. However, obviously we do have Olivia on the cast here, which again did surprise me. Like Horacio, again, it had looked like Olivia wasn't going to be on this season, yet here she is. So again, I'm excited for it. I thought Olivia was fun their first time around, and kind of like what I just said with Norris, someone that I expect to be a mainstay on the show moving forward, someone that is willing to get in the drama, willing to get in the hookups, pretty good in challenges, and unlike Norris, someone that I think I could actually see Olivia potentially winning at some point. So again, overall, I think Olivia is a solid competitor here, one that I am pretty excited to see on this season. Next up, moving on to someone that I'm not surprised to see them here, yet I feel like the current circumstances of them being here is kind of weird, and that person is Raven. Now, again, Raven being here on paper makes a lot of sense. I feel like she got into a lot of drama last time around. She was also a solid enough competitor. However, the fact that she's here without Johnny is strange, where obviously Johnny was initially listed for this cast, however was then taken off, however then was supposedly dropped. And without Johnny here, it makes the casting of Raven just feel a little bit weird. Now, she obviously still has this rivalry with Norris, I guess. However, obviously, I think the Norris, Raven, and Johnny trio being together again would have been interesting. But again, Raven's fine. I think she's kind of in this ballpark of like someone that I'm not like excited to see back, but also someone I'm not opposed to seeing back either. She's perfectly fine. Someone that can potentially bring entertainment to the show, though I could also see a world where she just doesn't. So anyway, I'm just kind of fine with her here. Next up, moving on to someone that I kind of expected to see here as well, considering this person seemed to be someone that production clearly liked. And coming from the Challenge Argentina, we have Hui Hui. And Hui Hui, even on the Challenge Argentina, felt like someone that you could very much see on the main show. I mean, she kind of fits in line with these rookies we've been seeing in recent seasons, and her being here really doesn't surprise me at all. I think she's a fun personality. She was pretty entertaining her first time around in Argentina. Now on World Championship, she didn't really get that much to do, but wasn't entirely bad there either. Like, I do feel like Hui Hui can be entertaining, though I don't really see much potential in her competitive wise, but I feel like she's still a solid enough pick for the cast here. Next, I'm moving on to someone that coming into the preseason, I was pretty surprised to see in the running, though again, here they are, and that person is Big T, who I like Big T. However, I also didn't really need to see Big T again. Now again, for a season like this where we're having a lot of lesser names, it is nice to see Big T here, obviously being one of the more prominent figures of this cast. Though really on any general season, I do feel like Big T is kind of outclassed, where I don't really ever expect Big T to do particularly well. Now again, she can have longevity as we've seen on certain seasons, but she's just someone that I just never really have faith in actually winning the game. And I kind of worry that she's going to turn into this like Anissa figure of someone just kind of gets repetitive, with them kind of being on the show feeling like fodder as someone that will just never end up winning and just kind of brings the same shtick every time. Though again, I still like Big T and I'm not opposed to seeing her here. It's just one that I don't feel like I need to see her back considering seeming lack of potential in the game as a whole. Finally, moving on to a player that I am a little bit surprised to see here. Not entirely, though, kind of more so surprised they picked this person over certain other people. And that person is Zara from the Challenge UK and also World Championship, who, again, the fact that Zara is one of the few people from the World Championship Series to end up landing on this season is kind of weird to me, as Zara was pretty much a non-factor in UK Season 1, even though she came extremely close to winning. And World Championship, she was definitely more entertaining. However, I feel like a lot of that had to do to her relationship with Wes. However, here, she's obviously going to be on her own, and I kind of worry she's going to fall back into obscurity, though she's in a pretty good spot, I feel like, to win this season. Again, like, she obviously is going to struggle in something that is, like, weight-based, but outside of that, like, Zara is probably someone that seems to be the most apt to win the game if she gets to the end. So I'm kind of interested in seeing how this run goes for Zara in that light, as I do feel like this could be a pretty good season for her, though obviously she is coming to this with a pretty big lack of connections. I think it's probably going to be your major downside, though. Again, like, overall, I'm fine with Zara being here, even though, again, the fact that they went with her over certain other picks from the World Championship Series does feel a bit weird to me. So there we go. I mean, that's the entire cast as of right now of the Challenge 39. Again, a really weird group of players here. Again, I'm fully expecting there to be more down the road, though considering that we could be waiting a long time to see who those people are, I decided just to stop down now and talk about the cast that we got so far. Now, moving forward, I'll obviously probably do a review of the season when it eventually comes out. Also, we obviously have USA 2 coming up, All-Stars 4 at some point, which I'll do videos on as well. And obviously, just expect the same style of content you can expect from this channel moving forward. But for now, that is the video. Thank you for watching.